기능들이 또 뭐가 있는 게 있나요?
Lovely viewers, before we sink into this warm, intimate story, I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine the noise of flashing cameras fading away. Imagine the endless rumors quieting down. Imagine two people who have spent years living under the public eye finally finding peace in the smallest, most ordinary moments of life. Now keep that image in your heart as we begin, because today's story is not about red carpets, awards, or dramatic headlines. It's about silence, comfort, and a quiet love that speaks louder than words. Today, we are diving deep into the moment Lee Min-ho revealed what he calls his favorite quiet moment with song Hye Kyo at home, and why that moment has touched fans around the world in ways no grand gesture ever could. When Lee Min-ho opened up about this, fans were not expecting anything extraordinary. Many assumed he would talk about late-night conversations, romantic dinners, or watching movies together. But what he shared was something far more tender, far more human, and far more relatable. He spoke about stillness. He spoke about peace. He spoke about a moment so simple that it almost felt sacred. According to Lee Min-ho, his favorite quiet moment with song Hye Kyo happens during the early hours of the morning, when the world outside is still asleep. The curtains are only half open, allowing soft morning light to spill gently into the living room. There are no assistants, no schedules, no scripts to memorize. Just two people existing in the same space, breathing the same calm air. He described how Song Hye Kyo often sits on the couch wrapped in a light cardigan, her hair still loose from sleep, holding a warm cup of tea with both hands. She doesn't speak much during this time, and neither does he. They simply sit together, sometimes not even facing each other, yet feeling completely connected. As you read this, pause for a second and ask yourself, when was the last time silence felt this comforting to you? When was the last time you shared a moment where words were unnecessary? Lee Min-ho explained that for him, this silence is not empty. It is full of trust, understanding, and a deep sense of safety. He said that in those moments, he doesn't feel like a celebrity. He doesn't feel like a public figure carrying expectations. He feels like himself. Just a man at home with the woman he loves. What made fans emotional was the way he described Song Hye Kyo during these moments. He said she becomes softer, more introspective. She listens to the sounds of the house, the distant hum of the city waking up, the gentle clink of ceramic when she sets her cup down. Sometimes she smiles to herself, not because of a joke or a conversation, but because she feels content. Lee Min-ho admitted that seeing her like this makes him want to protect that peace at all costs. Imagine sitting in that room with them. No music playing, no television noise, just the warmth of shared presence. Doesn't it feel calming already? He also shared that sometimes during this quiet moment, Song Hye Kyo reaches for his hand without looking at him. No dramatic gesture, no eye contact needed. Just a simple touch as if to say, I'm here. Lee Min-ho said that single gesture reminds him that love doesn't always need to be loud or performative. Sometimes love is simply staying. Fans were quick to notice how different this revelation felt compared to typical celebrity confessions. There was no exaggeration, no attempt to impress. Felt honest. Felt lived in. It felt like something real couples experience behind closed doors, away from the filtered perfection of social media. Lee Min-ho admitted that before Song Hye Kyo, he didn't fully understand the power of quiet companionship. He was used to excitement, movement, and constant stimulation. But being with her taught him that true intimacy often reveals itself in stillness. He said that even when they don't speak for long periods, he feels closer to her than ever. Let me ask you, dear viewers, do you believe silence can be a language of love? Because Lee Min-ho clearly does. He went on to explain that their home itself plays a role in creating these quiet moments. They intentionally keep it simple. Neutral colors, soft lighting, minimal distractions. Not because it looks good for photos, but because it helps them breathe. Song Hye Kyo, according to him, values calm spaces, and being around her has taught him to slow down. He joked softly that she has a way of making time feel less rushed, even when the world outside is demanding everything at once. During these moments, They sometimes watch the sunlight change on the walls. Lee Min-ho said he never thought he would find beauty in something so ordinary, but now it feels almost poetic. He watches how Song Hye Kyo's face softens in the morning light, how her eyes reflect a kind of quiet strength that doesn't need validation. He said that in those moments, he realizes how resilient she is, and how much she has endured while remaining gentle. Think about that for a moment. How often do we overlook the quiet strength of the people we love? Lee Min-ho also shared that these moments are when he feels most grateful. Grateful for the journey that led him to her. Grateful for the timing that allowed them to meet when they were both ready for something deeper. He admitted that if they had met earlier in their lives, they might not have appreciated this kind of peace. It was maturity, experience, and even past pain that made this silence so meaningful. One particularly touching part of his revelation was when he said that sometimes, during these quiet mornings, Song Hye Kyo closes her eyes and leans her head on his shoulder. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. That simple act tells him everything he needs to know. That she trusts him. That she feels safe. That she feels at home. Can you feel the warmth of that moment? Because fans certainly did. He emphasized that this quiet time is sacred to them. Phones are usually left in another room. Notifications are ignored. The outside world can wait. For those few minutes or hours, it's just them. Lee Min-ho said that protecting this routine has become one of his top priorities, even more important than any professional commitment. This revelation sparked an emotional reaction among fans, many of whom commented that it reminded them of their own relationships, or the kind of love they hoped to have one day. Some said it made them rethink what romance truly means. Others admitted it made them emotional because it showed a side of love that isn't often celebrated. Lee Min-ho acknowledged that not every day is perfect. Not every moment is peaceful. But he said these quiet moments anchor them. When schedules become overwhelming or rumors become loud, he returns to that image of sitting beside Song Hye Kyo in silence, and it reminds him of what truly matters. There was also a subtle vulnerability in the way he spoke. He admitted that being quiet together requires trust. It means being comfortable enough to not entertain each other constantly. It means accepting each other as you are, without masks. He said that Song Hye Kyo makes that easy, because she never demands more than authenticity. Let me ask you something, dear viewers. Do you think you could sit in silence with someone and still feel completely connected? Or does silence make you uncomfortable? Lee Min-ho's story challenges us to rethink that. Lovely viewers, let us continue gently from that place of calm, because this story does not end where silence pauses. It deepens, stretches, and slowly wraps itself around everything Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo share behind closed doors. After speaking about those quiet mornings, Lee Min-ho revealed that the beauty of those moments doesn't disappear once the day officially begins. Instead, that calm seems to follow them like a soft echo, shaping how they move through the rest of their time together. He shared that after those silent mornings, there is often an unspoken understanding between them. No discussion is needed about who will do what or where they need to be later. A glance, a small nod, a gentle smile is enough. He said Song Hye Kyo has a way of communicating without pressure, and that has changed how he approaches not only love but life itself. In a world that constantly demands explanations, she offers acceptance. And in that acceptance he finds freedom. Lee Min-ho admitted that there are days when the weight of expectations feels heavier than usual. Days when scripts pile up, meetings stretch endlessly, and the public's curiosity feels intrusive. On those days, he said, coming home to Song Hye Kyo feels like stepping into a different reality. Not one filled with luxury or perfection, but one grounded in emotional safety. Sometimes he comes home exhausted, barely speaking. Song Hye Kyo notices immediately, not because he says anything, but because she knows his silence. She doesn't push him to talk. She doesn't demand reassurance. She simply sits with him, maybe pours him a drink, maybe rests her hand on his arm, letting him decompress at his own pace. He confessed that this understanding didn't come instantly. It grew over time, through shared experiences, misunderstandings, and quiet patience. He said Hye Kyo taught him that love doesn't need to fix everything right away. Sometimes love just needs to stay present until the storm passes. Think about that, dear viewers. How many times have we tried to force solutions when all someone needed was company? Lee Min-ho also spoke about evenings at home, which carry a different kind of quiet. Not the fresh stillness of morning, but a softer, heavier calm. The lights are dimmer. Pace slows. Sometimes they cook together, moving around the kitchen in a familiar rhythm. Other times they sit on opposite ends of the couch, each lost in their own thoughts, yet fully aware of each other's presence. He said that even when they're doing separate things, there's a sense of togetherness that never fades. He described one particular habit that touched many fans deeply. Before going to bed, they often sit for a few minutes in silence, reflecting on the day. No phones, no distractions, just a shared pause before rest. Lee Min-ho said this moment helps him let go of the day's noise. It reminds him that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, there is a constant waiting for him at home. Hye Kyo, he said, has an incredible ability to make space for emotions without overwhelming them. If he wants to talk, she listens without interrupting. If he doesn't, she respects that just as much. That balance, according to Lee Min-ho, is rare and precious. As he continued opening up, he admitted that these quiet moments have helped him heal parts of himself he didn't realize were wounded. Fame, he said, can be isolating. You're constantly surrounded by people, yet often feel alone. With Hye Kyo, silence doesn't feel lonely. Feels shared. Feels intentional. This realization resonated deeply with fans who have experienced similar emotions in their own lives. Many commented that the story reminded them that emotional intimacy isn't built through constant excitement, but through consistency and care. Lee Min-ho also shared that Hye Kyo has her own quiet rituals that he's grown to love. The way she waters plants slowly, almost meditatively. The way she folds laundry neatly, taking her time. The way she pauses to look out the window, lost in thought. He said watching her move through these simple routines has taught him to appreciate life's smaller rhythms. He admitted that before he was always chasing the next goal, the next achievement. Now he finds joy in being still. And that shift, he said, came from loving someone who values presence over performance. Let me pause here and ask you, lovely viewers. How often do we rush past the very moments that could bring us peace? Lee Min-ho spoke softly about how Hye Kyo has changed his relationship with time. With her, time doesn't feel like something to conquer. Feels like something to share. Even moments of boredom, he said, feel comforting rather than empty. There's no pressure to constantly entertain each other. Just being together is enough. He also addressed the idea that many people romanticize constant excitement in relationships. He said that while excitement has its place, it's the quiet moments that build trust. It's in silence that you see someone's true self, their habits, their vulnerabilities, their humanity. And Hye Kyo, he said, has shown him her true self without fear. One of the most emotional parts of his continuation was when he spoke about aging together. He said that when he imagines the future, he doesn't picture grand celebrations or dramatic milestones. He pictures mornings like the ones they already share. Quiet, warm, familiar. He pictures growing older in a home filled with calm rather than chaos. This confession made many fans emotional because it felt grounded, realistic, and deeply sincere. It wasn't about fantasy. It was about choosing peace. Lee Min-ho acknowledged that not everyone understands this kind of love. Some people might find it boring or uneventful, but for him it's everything. He said that after years of living in fast-paced environments, choosing quiet feels like an act of self-care. Hye Kyo, according to him, understands this without needing it explained. She doesn't compete with the noise of the world. She offers an alternative to it. As the conversation unfolded, Lee Min-ho smiled when asked if these quiet moments ever scare him. He admitted that at first they did. Silence can be confronting. It forces you to sit with your thoughts. But with Hye Kyo, that fear faded. Silence became a refuge rather than a threat. He said that loving her has taught him that peace is not something you find once and keep forever. Something you choose every day, sometimes moment by moment. So as we continue reflecting on this story, it becomes clear that Lee Min-ho's favorite quiet moment with Song Hye Kyo is not just about sitting together in silence. It's about mutual respect, emotional safety, shared presence. It's about finding someone who allows you to be fully yourself, even in your quietest state. Lovely viewers, this story invites all of us to rethink what we value in love. It encourages us to slow down, to listen, to sit with the people we care about without distraction or expectation. Because sometimes, the most powerful connection happens when nothing is said at all. And as your voices gather in the comments, each one carrying its own story, its own longing, its own quiet truth, this narrative continues to unfold. Not just as Lee Min-ho and Song Hye Kyo's story, but as a mirror reflecting what so many hearts are searching for. Because when we talk about quiet moments that feel like home, we are really talking about belonging. About being seen without being watched. About being loved without being asked to perform. Lee Min-ho went on to share that these quiet moments have slowly reshaped how he defines success. For so long, success meant numbers, recognition, applause. But now, he measures it differently. He measures it by how easily he can breathe when he walks through his front door. By how naturally his shoulders relax when he sees Song Hye Kyo sitting there, absorbed in something simple, waiting without waiting. He said that knowing someone is there, not out of obligation but out of choice, changes everything. He described moments when they sit together late at night after long days, not talking about work, not analyzing problems, but simply listening to the sound of the house settling, the faint ticking of a clock, the distant noise of traffic. Sometimes Song Hye Kyo rests her feet against his, a small gesture that grounds him instantly. He said those moments remind him that love doesn't always need conversation to be felt. What struck fans most deeply was how intentional these moments are. They are not accidental. They are protected. Lee Min-ho admitted that there have been times when outside pressures threatened to invade that space. Endless calls, urgent messages, responsibilities that never seem to end. But he said he learned to set boundaries not just for himself but for the relationship. Because peace, once found, is something worth defending. Think about that, lovely viewers. How often do we allow noise to steal moments that could nourish us? Lee Min-ho reflected on how Song Hye Kyo's calm presence has taught him to listen more, to her, to others, and to himself. He said that in silence, he has learned to recognize his own emotions more clearly. Without distractions, feelings surface naturally. And instead of fearing that vulnerability, he has learned to embrace it. He shared that there are nights when Song Hye Kyo senses something is weighing on him before he even speaks. She might simply sit closer, or place a blanket over his shoulders, or quietly ask if he wants tea. These gestures, he said, carry more comfort than any long speech ever could. They tell him he is understood, even when he doesn't have the words. And in those moments, Lee Min-ho said, he feels deeply grateful, not just for her presence but for her patience. Love, he realized, is not just about passion. It's about endurance. About choosing gentleness even when life feels heavy. He also spoke about how these quiet moments allow them to reconnect with themselves individually. Sometimes they sit together while each is lost in their own thoughts. There's no pressure to fill the space. No insecurity about distance. He said that kind of silence only works when there is trust, when you know that even in stillness, you are not drifting apart. This resonated strongly with fans who have experienced relationships where silence felt tense rather than comforting. Lee Min-ho's story offered a different perspective. That silence can be safe when love is secure. Song Hye Kyo, he said, has a unique way of making him feel grounded. She doesn't rush him to be cheerful. She doesn't demand energy when he's tired. She allows him to exist as he is in that moment. And in doing so, she gives him permission to rest. As the conversation deepened, Lee Min-ho admitted that these quiet moments have helped him confront parts of himself he once avoided. In silence, there is nowhere to hide. But instead of feeling exposed, he feels supported. He said Song Hye Kyo's presence makes introspection feel less lonely. He described how sometimes they sit together and simply breathe, matching each other's rhythm without realizing it.